to another episode of Becoming the Product. I'm your host, Naya, and today's episode is going to be a bit more personal. We have officially hit the 1 year mark of this podcast, and I can't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude and excitement as I reflect on this journey. In this episode, I'll be sharing the highs, the lows, my experience winning the award, and most importantly, the next steps for this podcast. I'll also be diving into some tips and tricks for those of you who might be thinking about starting your own podcast or sharing your journey online. So if you're ready to reflect and learn, let's get into it. Wow, 1 year. When I looked at the data, I almost missed it, but I was like, wow, October. I remember the first episode went out first Monday in October last year, and I still remember when it was just an idea, that when the podcast was just an idea in my head. I was transitioning to product management, learning the ropes, trying to understand how things work. And when I was searching online for resources, I didn't really see those or some that I could relate to, especially from where I come from. And that was what made me want to share. I wanted to share my story online so that other people who are in my shoes can kind of have a resource to look out for it. So, learning the ropes, feeling the weight of imposter syndrome, which I know that a lot of us have felt, but I still pushed through it. But I also realized that my journey with its ups and downs could help other people as well, like I mentioned before, especially those who are trying to figure out their paths. And that is one of the main reasons why I started this journey, this podcast. This year has been such a ride. From the very first episode, I remember when I was doing the recording, I was like, when I was listening to myself, I was like, is this how I sound? Is this how I sound? The people want to really listen to this. And what started us as an experiment, something that I was just trying to test out to see if I could do it, more of me in season 1, now built into season 2, where I had a lot more guests, incredible guests who shared their stories and also came to talk about product management as well. The community, the small community that we've built around this podcast is truly something special. And I want to thank every single one of you for always tuning in, for sharing your thoughts and supporting this podcast along the way. So let's start with the highs. I won an award, guys. If someone told me that when I started this podcast that I would win this award, I would have said you're a joker. Who am I? Who am I? One of the biggest moments for me was when I was nominated for the APVA Awards in the Career and Entrepreneurship category, and winning the award. Wow, it was validation for me, because it just made sense that means everything I've been doing up until that point was important. I remember the feeling of seeing my podcast mentioned alongside other amazing creators. It was validation that the stories I was sharing, the vulnerability, the lessons, it was all resonating with some people. And honestly, that's what keeps me going. Knowing that even one episode, one conversation can make a difference in someone's journey. Another high, getting feedback from you guys. I know people have reached out to me on Slack, reached out to me in the comments of Spotify, reached out to me on social media, and hearing how this podcast has helped you or has inspired you to take a leap is truly heartwarming. It really reminds me why I started this podcast in the first place. So let's talk about the lows. I mean, it wasn't all sunshine and words. I know that there were some days when it was hard to show up. It was hard to be consistent. Like all journeys, they are definitely going to be low. So even though I've had some highs, there were times when I struggled with consistency. There were times when life just got in the way. And I found sometimes I even think that, am I even reaching someone? Like, you record an episode, you would think that a lot of people are going to listen and it's just few numbers. But those self-doubt moments were not really like, it was kind of like imposter syndrome. It was like, who am I to even talk? Who am I? Like, why would my story, why would my journey be important to some people? So definitely I felt some of this, especially when I first started, and when I actually wanted to start season 2. I experienced that as well, but I just kept pushing. And of course, you have technical hiccups. There are some days that I'll record, and when I want to edit, the audio quality was ridiculous. And so, or sometimes when I've even done everything I could do, it still didn't turn out right, and it was too late to like re-record. And I just had to push it out like that. So all this helped me to like embrace imperfections. I just had to let myself know that it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Just ensure that the message is really passed across. And I just had to like remind myself that it is all part of the process. Like I needed to experience this to grow. So now looking ahead, I've done season 1. Season 1 was more about just me experimenting and like, just starting the podcast. Season 2 was I was a little bit more intentional in the things I did. I had more guests on the show. I experimented with a lot more. I introduced a newsletter. I changed the colors of design. Like I was a little bit more intentional with everything I put out. So for next steps, it's gonna be back to the drawing board. Like I need to like sit down and really strategize on how I want the next season to be portrayed. And winning that award was a signal to me that there's still so much potential for this podcast. So it's literally back to the drawing board, trying to figure out how else to move forward, what to add into the episodes, what to make it more engaging for you guys. But I also want to involve you more in the process. I want to hear more of your stories, answer your questions, and maybe even have some of you as guests on the show. We're building a community here, and I want this space to be as interactive and supportive as possible. So now for some of you who are considering starting your own podcast, or even if just sharing your journey online, I want to share some tips that I picked up along the way. First of all is start with your purpose. I think the first few episodes of season 1 where I talked about understanding your why. What is your why? For me, it was more of sharing my journey, sharing why I chose product management, trying to make people understand product management from a simpler point of view. So you need to find your purpose and let that be your anchor when things get tough. Number 2 would be to embrace imperfections. Seriously, no one expects you to be perfect. I know the issues I've faced. I know all the issues I've faced, both technically and physically and all that. It is okay to stumble. It is okay to have technical issues. It is also okay to not sound like a polished radio host. People appreciate authenticity more than anything. Consistency is key. I know. It's easier said than done. For me, it was once a week, but for you, it could even be once a month. It could be once every 2 weeks. Consistency means different things to different people. So you just need to ensure that you just need to understand that showing up regularly builds trust with your audience. They start to expect you, and that is powerful. So just pick a time and stick to it. Engage with your community. Always ask for feedback, always respond to comments, always try to do all this because it helps you to really connect with your listeners, and these are the ones who will keep you motivated. Leverage multiple platforms. So don't just focus on your Spotify or your Apple podcast. Try to incorporate social medias as well. So try to do Instagram, try to do Twitter, LinkedIn, whichever one works for you. For me, for season 2, I started focusing more on YouTube because Google Podcasts went out. So my podcast was being showcased on YouTube Music. So I had to move there and try to create content there as well. So these are the things that help you to amplify your message and to engage with different audience. So that is 1 year recap of becoming a product. It is a journey, or it has been a journey filled with highs and lows, but I will not trade it for anything. If there is one thing I've learned, it is persistent pays off, and the impact you make goes far beyond what you can see. I want to also say a big thank you to everyone who voted for us in this award, and I cannot overemphasize my gratitude. It was a really humbling experience, and it was such a great honor that I had so many people who put me on their mind and who time to actually vote for me, and I'll forever be grateful for that. This award is for everyone, and I'm so happy that we won it. Thank you so much for all being a part of this incredible ride. Here is to another year of growth, learning, and storytelling. I'm gonna really take my time to create content that would be relatable, really, something that you would want to listen to. And if you want to chip in, if you want to hear some stuff, you can always reach out to me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, even on Spotify. Just drop a comment on what you'd like me to talk about, and I will try to incorporate it in the content. And if you're thinking of starting your own podcast or even sharing your story, I hope this episode inspires you to take that leap. When I started, trust me, it was nerve-wracking. I remember I called my sister. I was like, are you sure I should do this? And she was like, you would not know until you try. And it's okay to experiment. Like I said, my season 1 was more about me just testing to see what works and what doesn't work. If you check my pictures on Instagram, my audiograms, they were a lot wild. But if you look at season 2, it was a little bit more structured. I had teams, I had everything, color, everything was more structured in season 2, and I was trying to focus more on growth in season 2. So every season, or whichever way you want to work on it, pick something and focus on it. So season 1 was for me was experimental, just trying to feel how it works. Season 2 was to try and grow, focusing on growth. Season 3, we'll see. Back to the drawing board. So do not forget, you can reach out to me on anywhere, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I'd love to hear your thoughts and answer any questions. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep becoming the product. Thank you guys. See you in the next episode.